Thank you for watching, liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing right now. Like many of you living in the United States, I have to deal with taxes, and I don't mind paying my share. However, as a small business owner, it seems that I get taxed a little more frequently for assorted reasons. And recently, in the state of Washington, there was a bill, or I guess there is a bill currently on the table, that is going to be taxing small business owners and specifically people who deal with software services. We're going to be getting a tax. Like, what is it? The state tax currently at what, 4.5%? So we're, as small business owners, going to have to pass this tax along to people who would purchase our service if it's related to software or customization of software. This, of course, would impact developers and shops that basically design and customize software for other small business owners. This is going to be an expensive tax. And the WTIA, or the Washington Technology Industry Association, did I get that right, Ken?
You got it right.
Whew. I'm usually pretty good with acronyms after all these years. This is Ken Myer on the phone, current president and CEO of the WTIA. And they've been fighting the passage of this bill, so I was hoping to kind of get some clarification on what the bill is, how it came to be, and what the representatives who are supporting this bill hope to accomplish with its passing. Ken?
So, for those who don't know, like other states, we're facing a pretty significant budget shortfall in our state, in Washington, and so the legislature has been convening to put together a solution to that. And in the final hours of the regular session, the legislature is now in what's called special session because they didn't complete their work in the original session. A bill was put forth that basically said that custom software development will now be subject to a sales tax. So that basically means that about 2,000 companies who do custom work, which we can talk about in a minute, is a fairly generic term, and so it's not clear what that means. That could mean anyone from someone who does software development in a traditional sense for a business and writes their accounting application to maybe somebody who does web design. They're going to have to go and figure out the tax for the locality where that business is located that they're working with, and they're going to have to collect the tax and send it back to Olympia.
This kind of sounds, well, I guess, I don't want to say dangerous to competition, but, is this going to impact, let's say I was working with a business in the state of Iowa, and they wanted to buy my services in terms of customization or something related to software. Would I pass that tax along to them, and would they, if this is part of the scenario, would they see that as a detriment to working with me compared to working with another company in a completely different state that didn't have a tax?
You're only going to have to collect tax for companies that you do business with in Washington. So
Good.
Let's say a large company here, or even a small company, needs to get some development work done, and they go locally and they find a shop that can do it for them. If that shop sells that software to that company that's based in Washington, then they're going to have to collect tax on it. And there's some repercussions for this that are pretty clear, and some that aren't so obvious on the surface. So first of all, most of the companies that we're talking about that do custom software work are very small. We did a little bit of snooping on this, and they're less than 10 employees in size. So this definitely is small business. They don't have the kind of credit card collection, processing, all the things you need to go do to collect sales tax. And certainly they could go do that. But they are immediately, and as you know, we have a high sales tax here because we don't have income tax. That immediately is going to mean that they're going to have to charge their customer anywhere from 8 to 10% more for the services. And some of them are just going to say, you know what, I don't want to deal with that hassle anymore, and so I'm either going to just go work full-time for a company again, or I maybe will consider moving my business someplace else outside the geography, like Boise or Portland or Vancouver, right across the border, and do my development there. But basically, since they're so small, what's going to happen is we believe the end user is going to push them to absorb the cost of the tax. So basically, the end user is not going to want to spend 10% more, and they're just going to basically push the small custom shop to figure out how to absorb that tax in the price.
So in the scenario that I gave you, and you did clarify, would it almost be an opposite problem? Are businesses within the state of Washington then going to look outside the state, potentially, instead of inside the state?
Yeah, I think that it's going to,
customization.
it will likely have them look outside the state. I mean, there is some offshoring being done regardless, but that's not because of necessarily price. It's because there's just a huge demand for development work. But I think this is going to have people look outside the state more often. Granted, they're going to have to pay a use tax for that, but I think that you look at a local company, an IT a shop that needs to do development work, they're going to look outside the state more often.
Well, no, even individual developers.
Yes.
And I see them all the time. I really, and there's my audience. A lot of them on YouTube happen to be minors, admittedly, but a lot of them are getting into development, and they're asking, well, how do I start a business? How do I start making money with development, et cetera, et cetera? This would just be a detriment, specifically in attracting a developer to the state of Washington, which just, to me, seems kind of counterproductive, considering that we've got one of the biggest developer-centric companies right here in Redmond, Microsoft.
Yeah, we have gotten, the industry has spoken very loud and clear. We've gotten lots of people to call their legislator, and we obviously are down there often in Olympia, and we had some specific meetings around this with the leadership. And it's real concerning. I think the part that isn't so obvious that I mentioned a minute ago is that this is the first time. So I don't know if you or your listeners know that when it comes to professional services like lawyers and accountants, when they go in our state do some work for somebody else, they don't charge sales tax. They pay tax in a different sort of way, and that's the way it's been for custom software development. So this is the first time that a professional service is now being turned into a product and being charged the sales tax. So I think there are other people who need to be concerned about this who are not in our field, who this could be a slippery slope.
Well, it's going to impact more than just, as you said, kind of the small business owner. I mean, yes, in a grander scheme, the slippery slope, but even for people who work for small businesses, they're going to have to deal 9 times out of 10 with some kind of custom software development. What does that mean anyway? I mean, and I realized there were provisions that kind of said that the tax wouldn't be appropriate for free software, and I assume that meant like open source development. But once there was something charged in relation to some kind of software development, then the tax would be applicable.
So if you make a product, a software product as a business, and you hire a custom shop to do a piece of that work, under this rule, you don't have to pay sales tax on that because you're taking that software, you're integrating it into your product, and then you're selling it as a piece of software. And under those rules, it's sold as a product, and people pay sales tax on it. Okay? So if you're using software integrated into a product that you're reselling, you don't have to pay tax on that. But if you're selling software to a company that's using it not for resale, then they're gonna have to pay tax on it. And you can imagine, you spoke about these young folks who are thinking about coming here or sitting here, and they're starting up their own little shop of doing custom code work for folks. It's sad that they're going to have to figure out how to go collect tax and remit it to the state. And what's real concerning is just exactly what constitutes the custom software work. So if they deal with a customer and 9 times out of 10 or 90% of the job is talking to the customer about requirements and mapping it all out, and then only 10% of it is actually sitting down and coding, is it the 10% that gets charged or the whole 100%?
Wow.
So not a lot of clarity, unfortunately.
So who are the representatives behind this particular bill? And what's their party affiliation, if I could ask?
The author of the bill is a Representative Ross Hunter from the House of Representatives. He is a Democrat.
Okay. And are there any supporting representatives?
Honestly, off the top of my head, I don't know who's going in on it with him. But this is the House of Representatives. So where we are right now is the House of Representatives and the Senate in our state have different views about how to solve the budget problem with taxes. And the House approach is including individual taxes on a variety of things. The Senate approach is slightly different. And the House has come forth, and they've all supported, or not all, but they've had sufficient support from the House to push this view of the world.
You know, I watch, what happens in the technology industry, obviously. It's just what I do as a geek. But in reading the bill, what I guess was most concerning to me was that they were suggesting that this particular software tax was specifically to help fuel the funding of higher education. And to me, if you're going to tax the citizens, specifically to bolster the let's say public education, higher education, as the bill had suggested, why not tax the parents? Because if they tax me as a small business owner, who's to say I'm not basically paying for someone's education when they're going to then, after they graduate, move out of state?
The latter part of your argument is very fair. The former part is open certainly to debate on personal opinion about how we should pay for higher ed, but I think the more important point is this has nothing to do with paying for higher education in the specific sense, meaning
really?
The money generated from this is not going to be landing in the coffers of higher education. It's going to the general fund, and out of the general fund, part of which general fund pays for education. So these are preambles to bills, Chris, that are just language, but it's not really going directly to higher ed.
So then why do they say that? Is that just a hot button for people, like we need to support higher education?
I think that, I mean, I can't speak for them, but I think that perhaps as they craft these proposals, they need to put language in front of it that helps explain why there is a need for a new tax. But that language in this case, and in often cases, isn't really directly linked. It goes again into the general fund. It doesn't get applied directly to education.
You know, it's kind of funny. You know, you mentioned Vancouver, and assumingly you're talking about Canada across the border rather than Vancouver, Washington, on the opposite side of the state, north and south there. It's almost like we're getting taxed so much, we might as well move to Canada. We got the health care now. Even Canada and the U.S. is about the same, really, with all the taxes and the benefits and everything.
Chris, I'm going to let you talk there.
Sorry, I'm not suggesting. I just I was thinking, well, wait a minute.
You don't have to apologize.
So when is this bill then up to a vote? How soon?
You know, right now the two sides are in conference working through a solution to the mix of taxes that are going to be needed to balance the budget. We honestly don't know when that will be resolved.
Well,
so we're actively communicating what we feel about this. We're watching and honestly don't know yet. We anticipate it's going to be in the next week, but we're not certain.
Wow. You know, I just thought of something. Has the legislature thought about taxing Microsoft for Windows Vista? I mean, 7's good, but what they did with Vista was just, boy, they should be taxed for that, don't you think?
No, Chris, come on now.
I'm kidding, obviously, but it's a bigger question though. What's Microsoft saying about this? Because I can only imagine Microsoft is likely getting taxed on a separate level, completely separate level for the business they do.
They're probably. You want to talk to them. I don't want to represent their position.
Right. Well, Microsoft is a part of the WTIA, are they not?
Yeah, absolutely. They're a member of ours, but I don't represent their positions on policy stuff.
All right. Oh, fair enough. Well, that was kind of a flip statement. I wouldn't ever assume that we'd get that upset about Windows Vista. But 7, they came back with that. Maybe they should get a deduction for Windows 7, I think. That was
actually, I loaded Windows 7 at home. I actually thought it was a pretty darn good product.
7 is... Yes, I do use Windows 7. Absolutely do. And I believe me, I was one of the first to kind of lambaste Microsoft for what they did with Vista. And of course, now talking to everybody who works there, they agree with me. But at the time, they hated me. They thought I was the devil.
Well, that's a separate issue, whether you're the devil or not, Chris.
Right.
You want to move on to that?
Yeah, let's do that, Ken. So how can Washington citizens... And certainly, I guess, beyond, if people want to watch out for these kind of bills in their state or their part of the world, what can we do to kind of counteract or to inform the legislature about our position on the passing of this bill and how it impacts small business?
I think that traditionally the tech industry generally has not been as effective as it could be in states in making their voice known. We are an industry that's pretty heads down, working hard, lots of small companies, and I think the message here is you really need to stay tuned in to what's happening in your state, and you need to be voicing your opinion to your legislators. They will listen to you. They want to know what people think. I think that what's happened, though, is our industry is, again, heads down working, and it needs to just be vocal. Just keep your radar on. Look at your local tech association who's going to tell you the issues that are important. And if you feel strongly about one, have your voice heard.
Fair enough. Thank you, Ken. I realize you're a busy man there, and appreciate your time, expertise, and certainly effort in helping keep an eye on the tech industry here in the state of Washington.
Happy to do it, Chris.
My email address, chris@pirillo.com. Of course, you can feel free to send us feedback, and I'm sure you're going to leave comment here wherever you find this video embedded. And of course, we've got a community of our own tech enthusiasts at geeks.pirillo.com, including a political forum there. I mean, politics always breaks out of any kind of forum, it seems, so we just made it official there. We also have a live video feed with a chat room, as you saw, participating right here as a part of the video experience. You're more than welcome to join us, though we are typically talking tech 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at live.pirillo.com. We'll see you later.